Tom stood with his daughter Mia at the edge of a quiet street that led to an old building called Willow Inn. The sun was still rising, painting the sky with warm colors, but the inn looked like it had been waiting in silence for many years. The brick walls were worn, the wooden trim was faded, and the sign above the entrance had chipped paint that showed the age of the place. Tom had never been here before, yet the sight of the inn made something stir inside him. It felt familiar in a strange way, as if his memory was trying to remind him of something he had forgotten. He looked down at Mia, who held his hand tightly. She was only 7 and had never seen a building this large and old. Her eyes were round with curiosity. She pointed at the sign and asked, "Dad, what is this place?" Tom showed her the key that his mother had left for him. The key was large, made of metal that had darkened over time, and had a simple tag tied to it with an old string. The tag had a few words written in his mother's handwriting. It read, "For my son, when the time is right." Tom did not know why his mother had written those words, or why she had never once mentioned owning an inn. She had always lived a simple life in their small town, working as a librarian and spending her free time gardening or reading. She never spoke about her past before Tom was born. She never talked about Willow Inn, yet in her will, she had left the place entirely to Tom, along with a short note that said he would understand when he saw it. Tom answered his daughter with a calm voice. Even though his mind was full of questions, "This place belonged to your grandmother. I think she wanted us to come here after she passed." Mia looked at the building again. "It looks big. Did she live here?" "I do not think so," Tom said. "But I guess we will find out." He placed the key into the lock of the main door. It turned with effort, as if it had not been used for a long time. The heavy door creaked open, letting out a soft sigh of air that smelled like old wood, lavender, and dust. It was not a bad smell, just the scent of a place that had been asleep. Mia stepped inside first with quick steps and looked around with excitement. The lobby was wide and open, with tall windows that let in the morning light. Dust particles floated gently in the air, glowing like tiny stars. There was a long wooden counter on one side, which must have been the reception desk. Behind the counter were shelves filled with old keys hanging from hooks, each one labeled with room numbers. There were chairs arranged neatly around a low table, though the cushions were slightly faded. A large framed painting hung on the wall that showed the inn many years ago. In the painting, the building looked newer and brighter. Several people stood in front of it smiling at the painter, as if proud of the place. Tom wondered if his mother had been one of them, but he did not recognize any faces. Mia moved toward the pictures on the other wall. "Dad, look at these. They are nice." Tom walked over to see them. The wall was covered with photographs of guests who had stayed at the inn through the years. Each photo had a date at the bottom. Many of them were from more than 40 or 50 years ago. The guests in the pictures looked happy. Some held hands, some carried small bags, and others stood in groups outside the inn. Tom noticed that, in almost every picture, someone wore a silver leaf charm. He did not understand the meaning, but the repeated appearance of the charm gave him a strange feeling of connection. Mia touched one of the photos. "Do you think grandmother took these pictures?" Tom was not sure, but he answered gently, "Maybe. She did like taking pictures." He glanced around the lobby again, taking in the silence. His mother had never spoken about this part of her life, and he wondered why. If she truly cared about the inn, why had she kept it a secret from him? He felt a mix of curiosity and sadness. Thinking about how many things he still did not know about the woman who raised him, Tom moved behind the reception counter. He found old booklets, pens, and ledgers arranged neatly, as if someone had left them there only yesterday. The ledger on the top had dates from decades ago. He opened it and saw names written in tidy handwriting. The guests checked in, stayed for days or weeks, and checked out. It looked like a normal inn record. There was nothing unusual, yet Tom sensed there was something hidden under the surface. It felt like the walls were holding stories that had not been told for a long time. Mia roamed the lobby with interest. She walked behind Tom and tugged at his sleeve. "Dad, what is that?" She pointed to a door on the far side of the lobby. It was different from the others. While most doors had simple wooden handles, this one had a heavy chain wrapped around it. A metal lock held the chain tightly in place. A faded sign was nailed to the center of the door. The words were barely readable, but Tom made out two words: "Keep closed." Tom's eyebrows lowered. He had not noticed that door until now. It stood out, almost as if it was meant to draw attention, and yet also warn people to stay away. He approached it slowly. The chain had rust on it, but it still looked strong. The lock was old, but secure. He tugged on the door gently. It did not move even an inch. Mia stood beside him, her face puzzled. Why is it locked? Tom did not have a reason to give her. He had received no instructions from his mother about a locked room. She had left no explanation. He answered in a careful tone. "Maybe it is a room grandmother did not want people to open," Mia asked. "Do we have the key?" Tom looked at the key he used for the entrance. It was too large to fit the lock on the chain. Then he remembered the small envelope the lawyer had given him. It contained one more item besides the main key. He reached into his coat pocket and took out a tiny box labeled for Tom. He opened the box. Inside was another key. This one was smaller and older, with a pattern carved on it. It looked like it belonged to the locked door. Tom held the key for a long moment. He wondered whether his mother wanted him to open that door or keep it closed. Her note had not explained anything. It only said he would understand in time. He looked at Mia, who waited for him with wide eyes. She did not understand the weight of the moment, but she trusted her father completely before trying the key on the chain. Tom decided they should explore the rest of the inn first. He wanted to see what kind of place his mother had left him. He also wanted to make sure there was nothing dangerous or broken before bringing Mia further inside. He led her toward the grand staircase that curved gently up to the second floor. The railing was smooth and strong, carved with simple patterns of vines and leaves. The steps creaked under their feet, but they held firm. The second floor had a long hallway with wooden floors and many doors leading to guest rooms. The hall was brighter than the lobby because the windows were larger, letting in sunlight that warmed the floors. Mia ran to the first door and opened it. Inside was a clean room with a bed, a small table, a lamp, and a wardrobe. The bedspread was neatly folded as if prepared for a guest. Dust had gathered, but the room was preserved with care. Every room they checked looked similar. Some had paintings on the walls. Some had notes left behind from former guests thanking the inn for a peaceful stay. Mia enjoyed reading the notes and asked Tom to read a few aloud. The notes spoke of comfort, kindness, and a warm welcome. It made Tom think that his mother had taken good care of the guests here, even though she kept it hidden from him. After checking many rooms, they returned to the lobby. Tom walked to the office behind the reception desk. The office was small, but organized. Papers, folders, and small boxes filled the shelves. A desk stood near the window with a thick record book on it. Tom opened the book. It was filled with financial records and daily notes about the inn's operations. Most of the writing was in his mother's handwriting. Mia looked around the office. Dad, grandmother, wrote so much. Do you think she liked this place? Tom nodded slowly. Yes. I think she cared about it a lot. He noticed a drawer slightly open. Inside, there were letters tied with a ribbon, but they were covered by other papers. Tom moved the papers aside but did not read the letters yet. He thought he would save them for later when Mia was resting. For now, he wanted to focus on learning the layout of the inn. Mia went back to the locked door. She placed her small hand on the chain. Dad, this room feels important. Tom walked toward her and agreed. Yes, it feels like it holds a story. He held the old key again. He felt reluctant to open the door without learning more about the inn. He could not explain the feeling. But he sensed that opening the door too soon might reveal more than he was prepared to understand. He knelt beside Mia and said, "Let us explore the basement and the kitchen first. We will return to this door later." Mia nodded. She trusted that her father would open the door when the time was right. They walked toward the back of the inn. The kitchen was large, with old pans hanging from hooks and a long counter for preparing meals. Cabinets held plates and cups stacked neatly. The air smelled faintly like herbs. Mia opened a spice drawer and laughed softly at how many jars were inside. Tom found a door leading to the basement. The steps were steep, but he held Mia's hand and guided her carefully. The basement was cool and dim. Shelves lined the walls with supplies that had not been touched for years. There were old blankets, lanterns, and boxes. Everything was peaceful. Nothing seemed dangerous or strange. After exploring the basement, they returned upstairs. Tom checked every corner of the inn except the locked door. The sun rose gently over Willow Inn, filling the hallways with a warm glow that pushed away the cool shadows of the early morning. Tom stood beside the large window in the lobby, watching the soft light touch the old wooden floor. He held a cup of warm tea in his hands. He had barely slept during the night. His mind had been restless ever since discovering the journals, photographs, Rose's notebook, and the hidden hatch beneath the locked room. He kept thinking about his mother. He remembered her gentle smile, her quiet voice, and the calm way she lived. She had never seemed like someone who carried a heavy secret. She had always seemed peaceful. But the things he found inside the locked room showed that she had lived with a secret that might have worried her for many years. It made Tom wonder how she had carried that weight alone. Mia came down the stairs holding her stuffed bear. Her steps were slow, as if she had spent the night thinking about everything too. She walked over to Tom and leaned against him. "Dad, I kept thinking about the hatch under the floor. Could not sleep much." Tom placed his arm around her shoulders. "I did not sleep much either. We have a lot to understand." Mia looked up at him. "Are we going to open the hatch today?" Tom nodded. "Yes, but before we go down there, I want to read more of the journals and letters." "We need to understand as much as we can," Mia agreed. Tom knew she was brave, but he also wanted to be sure she was prepared. Whatever lay beneath that room had been kept hidden for many decades. He did not want to rush without knowing what they were facing. They returned to the locked room together. Air inside was still and calm. The pictures of his mother and Rose felt like silent guides watching over them. The trunk sat in the center of the room as if waiting for their hands to open it again. Tom removed the journals from the trunk and placed them gently on the floor. Mia sat beside him and picked up one of the thinner journals. She opened it carefully and pointed to a page. "Dad, look at this. It has your name." Tom leaned closer. The entry was written in his mother's handwriting. It said, "My son is young now. One day he will grow into a good man. Hope he will never need to know what Rose discovered. But if the time comes when he must know, I will leave my story behind for him. I pray the truth does not bring fear into his life." Tom closed the book slowly. His mother had kept so much hidden from him, not because she did not trust him, but because she wanted to protect him. He felt a mix of sadness and gratitude. Mia placed her hand on his arm and said, "Grandmother loved you a lot." Tom nodded. Yes, she did. He opened another journal. This one had dates from many years ago. His mother wrote about the inn being full of guests, laughter, and warm meals. But as he continued reading, the tone changed. She wrote about strange visitors who came only at night. They stayed for short periods and left without speaking to anyone. She wrote that Rose believed these guests belonged to a group that used the silver leaf symbol. Mia listened carefully as Tom read. "Dad, why would they come here at night only?" Tom thought for a moment. Maybe they wanted to stay hidden. Maybe they had meetings they did not want others to know about. Mia looked at the photographs on the wall again. Grandmother and Rose knew something important. That is why Rose wrote her notebook. Tom opened Rose's notebook again. The handwriting was neat and full of emotion. Rose wrote that she found signs of secret meetings that took place in the inn many years before Tom's mother arrived. She believed those meetings involved people who wanted to hide something valuable. She wrote about sounds beneath the floor during late hours. She wrote about a voice warning her not to dig deeper into the truth. The notebook ended with a short line. "If something happens to me, the truth must not be lost. Someone must uncover it." Tom took a slow breath. The more he read, the more he felt the weight of what he had inherited. This inn was not just a building. It was a place filled with history, choices, and fears that his mother and Rose had faced alone. Mia pointed to the shelves where the letters were stored. "Should we read the letters to Tom?" "Agreed." He walked to the shelf and picked up the box filled with letters tied with string. He untied the string and took out the top envelope. The paper felt delicate. The ink had faded slightly. The letter began with polite words from someone named Paula. She thanked Tom's mother for protecting something that belonged to the chosen group. Tom did not understand what the chosen group meant. The letter did not explain it clearly. The next letter was from someone named Mark. He wrote that the silver leaf charm represented a promise made many years ago. He thanked Tom's mother for fulfilling her side of the promise. The letter did not mention what the promise was. It only said that the group trusted her. Tom placed the letter on the floor. This is getting more confusing. Mia held a different letter in her hand. Dad, this one is from Rose. Tom took it carefully. It was written in Rose's neat handwriting. The letter said, I found something that I cannot explain. I believe the truth lies beneath the room we locked. If anything happens to me, please remember that I was trying to help you and the inn. Do not go down there alone. Wait for the right time. Someone will come who can understand the truth. Tom stared at the letter. Rose had known something dangerous or important was hidden below. She wrote this letter as if she knew something bad might happen to her. Yet she kept searching. Mia sat close to Tom and whispered, Dad, do you think something happened to Rose in the hidden room? Tom did not want to frighten her. He answered gently, I do not know. But I think she left clues for us to follow. They continued reading more letters. Some were warnings, some were messages of thanks. Some were simple notes about daily life at the inn. But every piece of writing pointed toward the same idea. Rose had discovered something beneath the inn. Tom's mother had tried to protect that secret for many years. Tom opened the last letter in the box. It was addressed to him. His name was written on the front in his mother's handwriting. His hand shook slightly as he opened it. The letter was short. My dear Tom, if you are reading this, then the time has come for you to know what I could not tell you. Willow Inn is not an ordinary place. It carries memories from a time when people came here for reasons that were not simple. Rose wanted to reveal the truth, but she was forced to leave before she could finish. I tried to protect her in the best I could. Now I trust you to finish the story. Be careful and trust your heart. Tom took a deep breath as he folded the letter. Mia asked, What did she say, Tom? Gave her a soft smile. She said she trusted us. She wants us to find the truth. Mia brightened slightly. Then we should find it. Tom nodded. But we must be careful. The morning slowly turned into afternoon. They read more from the journals and letters until they felt they had a strong understanding of what had happened long ago. Tom felt confident that the time had come to open the hatch beneath the room, before going down. They cleaned the room to make it easier to move around. They brought a small lantern from the kitchen and tested it to make sure it still worked. When they were ready, Tom knelt beside the hatch again. Mia stood next to him, holding his arm. Tom lifted the wooden board. The dark stairway opened beneath them. The air that rose from the passage was cool, still, and carried a faint scent of old earth and wood. It was not frightening, but it felt ancient, like a part of the inn that had not seen daylight in many decades. Mia looked at the stairs. Dad, do you think Rose went down there before us? Tom nodded slowly. I think she did. He held the lantern. We will go down together. I will walk first, and you hold my shirt so you do not slip. Mia nodded bravely. Tom stepped onto the first stair. It creaked gently, but held his weight. Then he stepped onto the next one. Mia followed close behind him. As they descended, the light from the locked room grew dimmer. The lantern lit the walls around them. Steps continued downward for longer than Tom expected. It felt as if they were moving into a different part of the inn that had been forgotten. Finally, the stairs ended at a small stone room. The floor was smooth, and the walls were made of large stones placed carefully together. It looked like a cellar, but not like the main basement they had explored earlier. This place felt older. Much older, as if it had been built long before Rose or Tom's mother had discovered it. In the center of the room was a large wooden board nailed shut. The nails were old but strong. Tom walked toward it slowly.
Mia
Stood close behind him. She whispered, This must be what Rose found. Tom held the lantern closer to the board. The more he looked at it, the more he believed that this board covered something important, something hidden for many years. The room felt still, as if waiting for Tom to make the next move. Tom put the lantern on the floor. Mia, stand back a little. I'll try to lift it. Mia stepped back, but kept her eyes on the board. Tom gripped the edge of the board, took a deep breath, and pulled upward with steady strength. Morning light filled the lobby of Willow Inn. As Tom stepped out of the guest room he and Mia had cleaned the previous night. The inn felt different in daylight. Shadows were softer, colors brighter, and the building seemed more awake, as if it was waiting for something. Tom rubbed his eyes and stretched. He had slept lightly, his mind busy with questions about his mother and the strange inn she had left behind. Mia came out of her room next, her hair a little messy from sleep. She smiled and held her stuffed bear in her hand. "Good morning, Dad." Tom knelt to hug her. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" She nodded. The room felt warm. "I dreamed about grandmother walking through the halls." She was smiling. Tom felt a gentle ache in his chest. He missed his mother more than he liked to admit. If she really had loved this place, he wished she had shared it with him earlier. Mia took his hand and led him down the stairs to the lobby. The inn was quiet, but the silence did not feel empty. It felt thoughtful, as if the walls carried memories. They ate a simple breakfast in the kitchen, using supplies Tom had brought with them. Mia sat on the counter, swinging her feet while Tom washed the dishes. She watched him and asked, "Dad, are we going to open the locked room today?" Tom dried the plate in his hand. "Yes, I think we should." The key he had found yesterday rested in his pocket. Every time he touched it, he felt the weight of a story waiting to be told. After breakfast, they walked back into the lobby. The locked door on the far wall seemed to stand taller than before. The chain wrapped around it looked darker in the morning light. Mia held Tom's hand tighter when they approached it. Tom knelt down so he could be level with her and said, "You can stay behind me if you want." Mia shook her head. "I want to stand with you." Tom smiled. "All right." He felt proud of her courage. He took out the old key. It looked delicate, but carried a strange strength. The metal had a dull shine that suggested it had been made long ago. Tom placed the key into the lock. The metal clicked softly, as if greeting an old friend. He turned the key, and the lock opened without resistance. He removed the chain slowly. It slid off the door with a gentle sound. Once the lock and chain were set aside, Tom grabbed the doorknob. It was cool against his hand. He took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The room behind it was dim, but not dark. A single window on the far side let in a soft stream of light. Dust sparkled in the air. The room looked untouched, as if time had frozen the moment someone had last been inside. The floorboards were smooth and clean. A lantern hung from the ceiling in the center of the room. The wick inside it was dry, but it still looked safe to use. Mia stepped beside Tom and whispered, "It looks like grandmother left it the same way." Tom nodded. He entered the room carefully, letting Mia follow. The walls were lined with framed photographs. Every picture showed his mother when she was young. In many of them, she stood beside another woman, with warm eyes and dark hair pulled into a bun. Tom had never seen that woman before, but the two of them stood together like close friends. On a small table at the far end of the room lay a wooden trunk. It was made of dark wood with tiny carvings on the edges. The carvings were shapes of leaves, vines, and tiny birds. The trunk looked older than the inn itself. Tom stepped closer and placed his hand on the top. It felt warm. Mia walked to the photographs on the wall. "Dad, look at this. This is grandmother, and the woman beside her looks kind." Tom studied the pictures. The two women often stood arm in arm, smiling. Sometimes they held papers. Other times they stood before a group of people, possibly guests. The woman beside his mother was always present. It made Tom wonder why his mother never mentioned her. He turned back to the trunk. It had a simple latch. Tom lifted it carefully. Inside were journals stacked neatly. Their covers were worn, but the pages inside looked untouched. A faint scent of old ink and paper rose from them. Tom picked up the first journal. The handwriting inside was soft and tidy. It began with the words, "This is the story of Willow Inn and the people who built it." Tom read the first few lines aloud for Mia. His mother had written about the early days of the inn. Long before Tom was born, She described how she and the woman named Rose had restored the building together. She wrote that Rose had a bright spirit and always believed the inn had a special purpose. They worked hard every day to bring life into the place. They welcomed visitors, shared meals, and kept the inn warm during long winters. Mia listened with calm eyes. Rose sounds nice. Why did grandmother never talk about her? Tom did not have an answer yet. He continued reading. The journal shifted in tone as the entries progressed. One entry mentioned that strange things had begun happening. Guests left in a hurry. Letters arrived late or with messages erased. Rose grew worried. She believed the inn held secrets from a time even older than their ownership. She started searching for clues hidden in the basement and attic. Tom looked around the room. It felt like every corner held a whisper from the past. Mia touched the trunk and said, "There are more journals. Should we read all of them today?" Tom shook his head softly. "We will read them, but not all at once. It is a long story." He placed the first journal on the table and took out another. This one was thinner. Inside was a single sheet folded neatly. He unfolded it. The page had a list of names and numbers. Some names had a small leaf symbol beside them. Tom noticed that same leaf in the photographs downstairs. He wondered what the leaf symbol meant. Maybe it was a group of guests, or maybe it was something else. Mia looked at the leaf symbol and touched it with her finger. Why do people in the pictures have this charm, and why are the names marked like that? Tom studied the page again. He wished his mother had told him more before she passed. He wished he had asked her more questions. But now he would have to find the answers through the journals, and whatever clues the inn held. He returned the folded paper to the journal. Then he looked around the room again. Besides the photos and trunk, there was a small wooden shelf in the corner. It held books and boxes. Tom walked over and examined them. One box contained a set of keys. Another held letters tied with string. The letters were addressed to his mother from various people. Some letters had return addresses from different towns, but none from Rose. Tom opened one letter. The writer thanked his mother for her kindness and for keeping the inn safe. Another letter mentioned the silver leaf charm and thanked Tom's mother for protecting something important. Tom's curiosity grew with every word. Mia wandered around the room gently. She looked at the lantern hanging overhead. "Dad, can we light this lantern later? It looks old but nice." Tom nodded. "Yes, we can light it tonight. It might help us read the journals." Mia smiled and continued exploring. She found a small drawer hidden inside the wall. She called Tom over. "Dad, look, there is something here." Tom crouched down and opened the drawer. Inside was a small notebook. It had Rose's name written on the cover. Tom felt a chill, not from fear, but from the weight of history in his hands. He opened the notebook. The first page read, "This is my record of what I believe the inn is hiding. If something happens to me, this might help Tom's mother understand." Tom stared at the words. Rose had written it for his mother, and his mother had kept it hidden for years. He read the next page. Rose believed that the inn had once been used by a group of people who held private meetings. She thought they used symbols like the silver leaf to identify each other. She believed this group had left something important, buried or hidden inside the inn. She wrote that she had found hints of a hidden room beneath the floorboards of the locked room. Mia leaned closer. "Is there a hidden room under us?" Tom looked at the floor. The journal from part 1 had mentioned a hatch. Rose's notebook repeated the same idea. He scanned the room. Near the corner, he noticed a small metal ring sticking out from the floor. He walked to it slowly. Mia followed with wide eyes. Tom knelt and pulled the ring. A square board lifted, revealing a small wooden hatch. It looked old but stable. Tom lifted it fully. A narrow stairway led downward into darkness. The air that rose from below smelled cool and still. Mia held Tom's arm. "Dad, what is down there?" Tom took a deep breath. "I am not sure, but I think Rose wanted us to find it." He closed the hatch for the moment. "We will explore it later. First, we should finish reading some journals and prepare." Mia nodded. "Okay, but I want to know what is down there." Tom smiled gently. "We will find out together." They spent the next several hours in the locked room reading more entries from the journals. Some entries described happy memories of guests. Others spoke about strange events that made Rose and Tom's mother question what the previous owners had hidden. The journals revealed that Rose grew more worried each day. She believed someone was watching the inn, trying to keep them from discovering the truth. Tom paused his reading often to think. His mother had kept all of this to herself for 50 years. She must have believed that telling Tom would put him in danger, yet she had trusted him enough to leave the inn in his care. It meant she believed the danger had passed. Or maybe she believed Tom could handle it. Mia kept flipping through the pictures on the wall. Grandmother looked happy with Rose. They looked like best friends. Maybe they were, Tom said. But something must have happened. When the afternoon sun filled the room, they decided to take a break. Tom stood in front of the chained door with the old key resting in his palm. The air around him felt heavy. Willow Inn had always seemed calm from the outside, but now it felt like every wall held a breath waiting to be released. The chain around the door was thick, but it had rusted from years of being untouched. Tom felt the metal with his fingers and wondered how many times his mother had walked past this same door without ever speaking of it. He thought about the letters he had read the night before. They had changed everything. The mother he knew had been quiet, gentle, and loving. He could never imagine her being part of a secret. Yet the letters clearly showed she had carried a heavy silence for 50 long years. Tom knew this room held answers she never had the courage to say. Mia stood beside him, holding a small lantern she found in one of the storage shelves. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with curiosity. To her, this adventure felt like stepping into a hidden chapter of their family. She looked up at her father and said in a soft voice, "Are we going to open it now?" Tom nodded. "Yes. It is time we learn what your grandmother could not tell us." He lifted the old key. His hand trembled a little, but not from fear. It was from the weight of responsibility. He placed the key into the lock. The lock turned slowly, almost unwillingly, as if it had grown used to staying closed. When it finally clicked open, Tom gently removed the chain. The metal links clattered softly as they fell to the floor. He pushed the door. It opened with a long creak, and a faint smell of old wood drifted out. Inside, the room was dark, but not empty. Dust floated in the thin shafts of sunlight that entered from a small window high on the back wall. The room felt frozen in time, untouched by the world outside. Tom stepped in first. Mia followed closely, still holding the lantern. The wooden floor creaked under their weight. As Tom looked around, he noticed that the room was arranged almost like a quiet memory someone had tried to preserve. Against one wall were photographs. They were hung neatly, all in wooden frames. Tom recognized his mother in many of them. She was younger, her smile brighter. Beside her stood another woman. She had warm eyes and a gentle face. Tom remembered her name from the letters. The woman was Rose. Every photo seemed to capture a moment of joy. The two women standing in front of the inn. The two laughing while painting a wall. The two sitting by the garden drinking tea. It was clear they had once shared a strong bond. Mia walked closer and studied one picture. She pointed at it and said, "Dad, they look happy." "They were," Tom replied. "At least for some time." In the center of the room stood an old trunk. It was large and covered with a layer of dust. Tom walked toward it and brushed the dust away with his hand. The trunk had metal corners and a lock that was already open. Maybe someone had opened it years ago. Or maybe Tom's mother had left it unlocked for him. He lifted the lid. Inside were stacks of journals, small boxes, and folded papers. Tom picked up the first journal he saw. The cover said Rose in neat handwriting. He opened it gently. The journal was filled with entries. Most of them talked about the early days of Willow Inn. Rose wrote about how she and Tom's mother had worked hard to fix the place when they first bought it. She wrote about their dreams, hopes, and the guests they welcomed. She described how the inn somehow felt alive and warm, as if it wanted to be a home for everyone who visited. Tom could hear Mia walking slowly around the room, her footsteps soft and curious. She was tracing the outlines of the old furniture with her fingers, feeling the age in the wood. She glanced at the journals but did not touch them. She somehow understood these were pieces of a story that meant something deeper to her father. Tom continued reading. The entries changed tone after a while. Rose started writing about strange movements in the inn. She mentioned guests who came in groups, spoke in low voices, and stayed only during certain times. She wrote about old papers she found in the office that did not match the inn's records. Her words grew more serious. The last few entries carried a sense of urgency. Rose wrote that she believed the guests were using the inn for secret business involving money. She had found hidden papers behind the wall near the basement staircase. She mentioned talking to Tom's mother about it. She believed they should go to the authorities. But something stopped her. She wrote that she worried the men might be dangerous and that it was safer to collect more proof first. The final entry ended with a simple message. I think I know what the old guests were hiding. I must check the basement beneath this room. There is a hatch under the board on the floor. Tom closed the journal slowly. The words felt like a cold hand touching his heart. Rose had disappeared right after writing this. His mother had written that she had hidden the truth to keep Rose safe, but Rose's journal suggested she was close to uncovering more than just hidden papers. Tom looked around the room again. Now he noticed something he had missed earlier. In the center of the floor, there was a large wooden board. It blended well with the rest of the floor, but the edges showed faint signs of being lifted before. Mia noticed Tom staring at the board. She walked over and asked, "Is something under it?" Tom nodded. "I think so. Your grandmother and Rose both knew something important was beneath this room." He knelt and placed his fingers along the edge of the board. The wood felt rough but loose. He pulled it upward. It rose slowly, and beneath it was a dark opening. Mia held the lantern slightly higher. The light revealed a narrow staircase made of stone. The stairs led downward into a small hidden basement. The air from below carried a cool, heavy smell. The space had been closed for many years. Mia looked at her father with wide eyes. "Are we going down?" Tom hesitated for a moment. He wanted to protect Mia from anything frightening, but the basement held answers he needed. And he could not leave Mia alone upstairs. She was safer by his side. "Yes," Tom said finally. "But stay close to me." "Ah." Mia nodded and held his arm gently. Tom stepped onto the first stone stair. The sound echoed softly through the small chamber below. He carried the lantern in one hand and used the other to guide Mia. The deeper they went, the cooler the air became. The basement was not large, but it was strong and built with thick stone walls. When they reached the bottom, Tom saw a simple room. There were no windows. The only light came from the lantern. In the center of the basement was a wooden board nailed into the ground. The nails were old and rusted. There was nothing else in the basement. No furniture. No tools. No boxes. It felt like the room had been made only for one purpose, and that purpose was hidden under the wooden board. Tom carefully set the lantern on the ground. He studied the nails. They were rusty, but loose enough to remove with his fingers. He pulled the first nail out, then the second, then the third. Each one lifted with a soft crackle. Mia stood behind him, watching quietly. She held her hands together, both nervous and excited. She sensed this moment was important, even if she did not fully understand why. Once the last nail was removed, Tom lifted the board. Under it was a metal box. It was rectangular and sealed tight. A thin layer of dust covered it, showing it had not been touched for many years. Tom lifted the box. It was surprisingly heavy. He set it on the floor and wiped off the dust. There was no lock on the box, only two metal clasps. He opened them and raised the lid. Inside were papers. Old papers. Hotel records, names of guests, payment receipts, and small notebooks filled with quick notes. Tom picked up one paper and examined it. These were not normal hotel papers. They recorded meetings held late at night, strange charges for items that an inn did not normally provide, and coded messages written in short lines. Tom understood immediately why Rose had been concerned. These papers were proof that Willow had been used by people who wanted to hide their actions. They were proof of something dishonest that had taken place 50 years ago. Tom realized why his mother had kept this hidden. She had been protecting Rose from danger. She had also been protecting Tom, even if it meant carrying the burden alone. She had covered up the truth because she feared what would happen if it came into the wrong hands. Tom felt a wave of sadness, but also admiration. His mother had carried a heavy secret for decades. She had protected someone she cared about and shielded her child from a complicated truth. Mia stepped closer to the box. She looked at the papers and asked, "Dad, what does it mean?" Tom smiled softly at her. "It means your grandmother was braver than we knew. She kept someone safe. She protected our family. And now we finally understand her story." Tom closed the box gently. The weight of the past felt lighter now. The truth was no longer buried in silence. It was in the open, ready to rest. He picked up the lantern and held Mia's hand. As they climbed the stairs out of the basement, Tom felt the air around him shift. It was as if Willow, into itself, felt relieved that its long-kept secret had finally been uncovered. The room above no longer felt heavy. It felt still, peaceful, and ready for a new beginning. Tom took one last look at the photos of his mother and Rose. He felt a quiet respect for the lives they had lived and the choices they had made. Mia leaned against him and whispered, "Dad, it feels calm now." Tom placed his arm around her. "Yes, because the truth is finally known." Then they walked out of the room together, leaving the door open behind them. Willow Inn was ready for its next chapter, no longer held down by the past. Tom walked out of the secret room with the metal box still in his hands. The door stood open behind him, as if the room itself wanted to breathe after so many years. He looked down at the box and felt the weight of history resting inside it. These papers had stayed hidden for half a century. Now, the truth was finally out. And Tom knew he had a responsibility to protect it and share it in the right way. Mia stayed close to him. Her small steps echoed softly on the wooden floor as they returned to the lobby of Willow Inn. She watched her father with thoughtful eyes. She could not understand every detail, but she had understood enough to know that something important had happened. Tom placed the metal box on the old front desk. The desk was scratched from years of use, but it still stood strong. He ran his fingers across the surface, thinking about how many times his mother might have placed her hands in the same spot. Maybe she had even looked at the metal box once, wondering if she should reveal the truth. But she chose silence. Now Tom wondered if she had wished for him to find it. Mia climbed onto a stool and sat beside him. She rested her chin on her hands and said, "Dad, what will we do now?" Tom smiled at her, though worry lingered behind his eyes. "We will look at everything carefully, and then we will decide." He opened the box again and spread the papers across the desk. There were receipts, names, coded pages, and journals. Each one told a small piece of a story. When placed together, they formed a larger truth. Willow Inn had once been a safe place for people who hid dishonest activities. Rose had discovered that truth. Tom's mother had protected Rose because she feared what those people might do. Tom felt a quiet sadness for Rose. She had been brave and curious. She had risked herself to protect others. He wondered where she had gone. His mother had written that Rose was sent away secretly, but Tom did not know where she lived now or if she was still alive. The thought made him want answers, not out of anger, but out of respect. Rose deserved to be found, or at least remembered. Mia leaned closer to one of the journals. She could not read all the words, but she saw drawings of the inn that Rose had sketched. The pictures showed a young woman's dream of making the inn a warm place for travelers. Mia traced a line with her finger and said, "She drew very nicely." She cared about this place a lot. The afternoon sun entered through the front window and lit up the lobby. The inn felt brighter than before. It was as if the building itself felt lighter now that its secrets had been uncovered. The dust on the shelves and the old lamps did not seem gloomy anymore. Instead, they looked like pieces of a story waiting to be renewed. Tom lifted one set of papers and read them carefully. They listed names of people who had stayed at the inn 50 years ago. Some names appeared many times. Others had strange notes beside them. One note said, "Late meeting in the back room." Another said, "Arrived at night with 2 guests." A third said, kept box with him at all times. Tom understood that these people had not come for rest. They had come with a purpose that had nothing to do with travel. They had used the inn as a place to hide their business from the outside world. He turned the papers over and found another list. This one had Rose's handwriting. She had tried to track the movements of those guests. She had written down their actions, their visits, and her suspicions. She had been careful and thoughtful, and she had been right. Tom closed the paper gently and looked around the lobby. "Your grandmother tried to protect everyone," he said quietly. Mia nodded slowly. "She was good." "She was," Tom agreed. For a moment, they both stayed silent. The inn felt calm, as if waiting for what came next. Tom stood and walked to the window. He looked out at the quiet street. Cars passed now and then, and people walked by without knowing the history. Hidden inside Willow Inn, Tom wondered if the town had forgotten. What had happened 50 years ago? Or if some people still remembered but chose not to talk about it. Tom took a deep breath. He had a choice now. He could hide the truth again, or he could share it in a way that brought peace instead of fear. His mother had done her best in her time. Now it was his turn. Mia came to his side and held his hand. Tom looked down at her and felt strength. He realized he was not alone. Everything he did from now on would shape the life he built with Mia. He returned to the desk and began organizing the papers. He sorted them into small piles so he could understand the story better. One pile contained guest lists. Another held the coded messages. A third held Rose's journals. The last pile had documents written by his mother. As he read his mother's writing, Tom felt his chest grow warm with emotion. She had written about her fear for Rose's safety. She had written about the pressure she felt from the group of guests. She had written about her plan to help Rose leave quietly. She had even written about her sadness at losing her friend. The words were filled with love and loyalty. Mia listened while he read. Even though the words were long, she understood the emotion in her father's voice. When he finished reading, she hugged his arm and said Grandma did her best. Tom placed his hand on her shoulder. She did. After collecting his thoughts, Tom understood what he needed to do. The truth deserved to be known, but not in a way that hurt anyone. He would tell the story with care and respect. He would speak about Rose and his mother with honor. He would protect the inn and give it a chance to be something good again. As the sun slowly began to set, Tom lit a few lanterns in the lobby. The warm glow filled the space with comfort. He wanted to see how the inn looked when it felt alive. Mia helped him dust the tables and straighten the chairs. Together, they gave the place a new breath. Mia looked around and smiled. "It looks nice now." Tom nodded. "Yes, it does." Cleaning the inn felt symbolic. It was like removing the last shadows of the past. Every object they touched seemed to shine a little more, as if the inn appreciated being cared for again. When they finally sat down for a rest, Tom said, "Maybe we can open the inn again." Mia's eyes brightened. "Really, yes," Tom replied. "Not right away, but someday. We can make it a place where people feel welcome and safe. A place without secrets." Mia grinned. "I can help. I can paint the rooms. I can make signs. I can greet guests." Tom laughed softly. "You would be great at that." As they talked, something gentle settled in Tom's heart. He felt a sense of purpose. For many years, he had lived a simple life trying to provide for Mia. He had not expected to inherit a hotel. He had not expected to uncover a long-hidden truth. But now that everything was open and honest, he felt ready for the future. He looked at the metal box one more time. It no longer felt like a heavy burden. It felt like a bridge between past and present. Through it, he had learned the truth about his mother's strength and Rose's courage. He had understood the importance of protecting the people you care about. Later that night, Tom and Mia sat in one of the guest rooms. It had soft lighting, a clean bed, and gentle warmth. They talked about the day and about the future they could build in the inn. Mia rested her head on her father's arm and closed her eyes. "Dad," she whispered, "I like this place now." Tom kissed her forehead. "So do I." As Mia fell asleep, Tom stared out the window and watched the moonlight shine across the yard. The inn looked peaceful. It felt like a guardian of stories, both old and new. Tom understood one last important truth. A secret can be heavy, but when shared with care, it can also bring healing. His mother had carried the secret alone because she wanted to protect others. Now Tom would carry the truth with honesty and openness. The past was no longer hidden. The inn was no longer in the shadows. And Tom and Mia were no longer visitors. They were home. The next morning, as light entered the room, Tom made a silent promise to his mother, to Rose, and to himself.